Hi, everybody. My name is Dorene Koehler, and I graduated from the Myth program with a master's and a PhD in mythological studies with emphasis in depth psychology in 2012. And today that I wanted to talk about my new book that I published last April titled The Mouse and the Myth, Sacred Art and Secular Ritual at Disneyland. And this book grew out of my research at Pacifica. So I kind of wanted to talk to you a little bit about how I started to come up with the project. Well, when I started at Pacifica back in 2006, I entered the program thinking that I was going to study Celtic mythology, which is a deep love of mine, something that I am still very connected to. But shortly after I started at Pacifica, I became disillusioned a little bit, not with the program, but with the fact that we didn't have a lot of voices speaking to what was going on in popular culture, specifically American popular culture in our program. I constantly thought to myself, how do we tend the soul of the world in our contemporary climate that we're in right now if we're not looking at the stories and the phenomena that people are gravitating toward and the things that are touching people today and the things that are speaking specifically to our myths that we engage with today. I saw a lot of discussion of kind of like a rejection of American consumerist culture, and rightly so, and a return to ancient traditions and all of that, and rightly so. But I also felt like we couldn't really move forward with those kinds of things unless we understand who we are, where we came from, and how we got to the place where we are right now. One of the things that I started doing at Pacifica was looking at specifically California's mythic output in the context of American culture. And that led me back to my Azorean roots, my Azorean Portuguese roots, and I started thinking about immigrants and the stories of creating California. Which also led me to Disney. Disney was always part of that from the very beginning. And in fact, the first poem that I wrote when I started at Pacifica for my dream class was called A Gateway to Adventure. And it was all about the experience of going underneath the train tracks to Disneyland when you first get to Disneyland. So I started to kind of narrow down the things that I was looking at. I threw around ideas like I thought about possibly talking about the heads of the studios and connecting them to archetypes like Howard Hughes and Walt Disney and William Randolph Hearst. And, I thought about all of that, and I thought about talking about the impact of immigrants in our state. And then I had a synchronicity. I came across a quote from Joseph Campbell, and here's the quote. So here's his quote. All Disneyland really is, you see, is the projection outward of the phenomenology of the imagination. And if they can't go into their own imaginations, they might as well just go into Walt Disney's and he'll help them. And here's the kicker. Here's the part that I was like, oh, this is it. And this is what really impacted my dissertation. That's what religions have done all the time. So I had this synchronicity that I found this quote, and then I went to Disneyland, and I was there one day, and I had this experience where I heard Walt's voice come over the loudspeaker, and he was saying the welcome speech, and I was looking at everybody, and all these people of vastly different cultures and sexual orientations and races and religions and all of that. Everybody is there under the same auspices of Walt Disney's myth, and everybody was getting along in this context, and I'm sitting here thinking to myself, this is American mythos. This is this is the center of at least Walt's projection of what he thought American mythos could be. So one day I was talking to my friend Britta Kay. She's a brilliant artist, and she was the editor of my dissertation. And through this conversation, I realized that I was exploring the concept of Disneyland as temple. Now, this reignited my passion for ritual studies, something that I had done all the way through the program, which is why I originally got into the work with my Azorean heritage. But through this conversation, what I realized was that what I was actually getting at was that Disneyland is a temple to American myth. And as such, it utilizes many of the traditional pieces of ritual, such as icon spectacle, feasting and vesting, And this made me keen to address what I saw as the breakdown of ritual traditions in American culture. Something I had been argued exists in American culture, by the way, through my Azorean tradition, and something I've been convinced exists all along. And what I ended up arguing was that Disney fills the void for some people related to that specific need. So just in wrapping up, what I wanted to also talk a little bit about is the way that I published. I was blessed to become friends with my external reader immediately as we met. She is also a Disney scholar, an amazing writer in her own right, and her name is Amy Davis. If you have any interest in Disney, you should absolutely look at her books. She suggested that I talk to her publisher, and his name is John Libby. He's located in London, and because he's specifically interested in publishing entirely works on Disney scholarship. So I contacted him, and he picked up the project right away, immediately. Like, I didn't even really have to say much. I just pitched him the idea, and he was like, yes, brilliant, let's do this thing. So it's been a wonderful experience. The only thing that I can say about it is that it is a little bit challenging marketing your own book. So for all of you who are out there doing that kind of thing, I feel your pain, and we're all kind of in this thing together. So that's my little wrap up about my book, and I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'd love to see you read it. And by the way, if you haven't seen Coco and you're interested in myth, especially Mexican mythology, please do. It's a wonderful movie. So see you guys soon. Bye-bye.